She pointed her finger at me like I was some kind of criminal, yelling, "You can't fish here. The HOA has strict rules." I looked down at the small bass wriggling on my line and then back at her smug face. My daughter stood beside me, clutching her little pink fishing rod, confused why a stranger was screaming at her dad for standing by the water. I said calmly, "This is a public lake. Anyone can fish here." But Karen wasn't listening. She waved a stack of papers claiming it was an official HOA notice and slapped a bright orange fine on my truck windshield. $150 for fishing with my kid. People walking by stopped and stared, some whispering, but Karen loved the attention. She shouted louder, "If you don't pay, we'll tow your car and revoke your access to the community facilities." My daughter's eyes started to water, and that was the moment I realized this wasn't about fishing. This was about control. She wanted to humiliate me, make me look small in front of my child. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice low, "you might want to think twice before putting your hands on my property." She smirked, like she'd already won. And then she said the line that burned in my head all night. "This lake belongs to us, and you'll never set foot here again." She had no clue that I was about to own everything she thought she controlled. The next morning, I walked down to the lake again, this time without a fishing rod, just to see what Karen would do. Sure enough, she was already waiting with her phone out, recording me like I was some kind of trespasser. "Caught you again," she said, her voice sharp with fake authority. "Another fine is coming your way." I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out a folded packet of documents from my jacket and laid them on the hood of my truck. Her smirk froze as I tapped the first page. "That right there," I said slowly, "is the deed. I bought this entire lake last week." Her phone slipped in her hand, and for the first time, she didn't have a comeback ready. I leaned closer and whispered, "Which means, technically, you're standing on my property without permission." She laughed nervously, trying to brush it off, but her voice cracked. You can't do that. The HOA owns this lake." I slid the papers toward her so she could see the county seal at the bottom. "No, Karen, the HOA only leased access. That lease expired last year. I bought it outright. Every fish, every inch of water, it's mine now." A couple of neighbors had gathered around, curious about the argument. One man in a baseball cap asked, "Wait, does that mean we can't fish here anymore?" I nodded slowly. "No one fishes here unless I say so. And after the way I've been treated, well, let's just say the rules are changing." Karen's face turned pale. For once, she wasn't in control. She tried to laugh to cover up her panic, but everyone could see her hands shaking. And then I dropped the line that made the whole crowd gasp. "From this moment on, the HOA is banned from the lake." The crowd erupted in whispers, some shocked, some thrilled, but Karen's voice rose above them all. "You can't ban us! I'll call the cops right now!" She fumbled with her phone, dialing with trembling fingers, her eyes darting around for support. A few neighbors stepped back, clearly not wanting to get dragged into her drama. My daughter tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, are we in trouble?" I bent down, kissed her forehead, and said, "No, sweetheart. We're the ones protecting what's ours." Minutes later, 2 police cruisers rolled up, lights flashing. Karen straightened her shoulders like she had summoned an army, waving them over. "Officer, arrest this man for trespassing and harassing me. He's breaking HOA law." One of the cops, a tall guy with mirrored shades, turned to me. "Sir, what's going on here?" Before I could answer, Karen shoved the fake notice into his hands, declaring, "He's been fined multiple times. He refuses to pay. He even threatened me." The officer raised an eyebrow, then looked at me. I pulled the deed packet from my truck bed and handed it over. "That's the county seal," I said calmly. "This lake is mine. She's trespassing on my land, and she just tried to issue me a fake fine." The officer studied the papers for a long moment while Karen kept yapping in the background, her voice shrill and desperate. Finally, the cop turned toward her and said something that made the whole group freeze. "Ma'am, these documents are legitimate. If you're standing here without his permission, you're the one trespassing." Karen's jaw dropped. She started stammering, insisting it was all a mistake, that the HOA had more authority than the county. But the cop just shook his head, almost laughing. "That's not how the law works." I crossed my arms, staring at her. "You wanted me arrested? Fine. But now you're on my property, and I could press charges." Her face went pale as every neighbor's phone camera pointed straight at her.
Karen's voice cracked as she tried to hold her ground. "You can't do this to me! I'm the HOA president!" She puffed her chest out, like the title made her untouchable, but the neighbors weren't buying it anymore. A few of them even chuckled under their breath. One woman muttered, "Looks like Queen Karen just lost her crown." That made Karen snap. She pointed at me with shaking hands and screamed, "This isn't over! I'll get you banned from the entire community! You'll regret this!" Before the cops could calm her down, she stormed off, heels crunching on the gravel. Everyone thought it was finished, but I knew her type. She wouldn't stop. And I was right. That night, while my daughter was asleep, I heard banging on my front door. I opened it to find two men in cheap uniforms, flashing badges that didn't look right. "Sir," one of them said, "we've had complaints about you. You need to come with us." Karen's car was parked at the curb behind them, her silhouette visible through the windshield. She was watching. I leaned against the doorframe, calm as ever. "Funny," I said. "You boys don't look like deputies from this county. Which department did you say you're with?" They froze, glancing at each other, fumbling for words. I stepped back inside, grabbed my phone, and hit record. I know fake badges when I see them. Impersonating law enforcement is a felony. Karen's car door flew open and she shouted, "Don't listen to him! He's dangerous! Arrest him now!" The two men looked nervous, shifting on their feet, clearly realizing they were caught. And then I dropped the twist that turned their faces white. "I used to train SWAT units. You're not taking me anywhere." The two fake cops froze when I said that, their hands hovering awkwardly near their belt like they didn't even know what to do next. My camera kept rolling, catching every twitch on their faces. "You have 3 seconds to leave my porch," I said, voice low but sharp, "or I call the real sheriff, who, by the way, is on speed dial." Their bravado cracked instantly. One of them muttered, "Come on, man, let's just go." But Karen was still yelling from her car, "No, don't you dare walk away. He's bluffing." That was the moment headlights cut across the street. A real county cruiser pulled up, red and blue flashing. Karen's expression flipped from confidence to sheer panic as Deputy Collins, a man I'd served with overseas, stepped out. He spotted me, gave a quick nod, then turned his attention to the imposters. "Badges, now." His tone was steel. The two men stammered excuses, but Collins yanked the badges from their shirts and held them up to the light. "Cheap plastic," he said flatly. Then he looked at Karen. "Did you hire these clowns?" Her voice wobbled. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe. He's the problem, not me." Collins didn't buy it for a second. He cuffed both men on the spot, reading them their rights while the neighbors poured out of their houses, phones recording everything. Karen's face went pale under the glow of all those cameras. "Ma'am," Deputy Collins said, stepping toward her car, "impersonating law enforcement is a felony. If you had any part in arranging this, you're looking at serious time." She shook her head violently, babbling about being set up, but the crowd was already buzzing, whispering about how the HOA president just got caught red-handed. I looked straight at her, my voice calm but cutting. "You tried to ruin me with fake fines, then fake cops. What's next, Karen? Fake judges?" Her silence told me she was running out of moves, but I knew she wasn't finished yet.